The chatterbait. This thing has changed fishing not only in the pre-spawn, but the spawn and post-spawn. In this video I'm going to show you guys how to fish it, when to fish it, where to fish it, and some tips to help you guys catch more fish on the chatterbait. Now, the chatterbait, it could be many different things. It could be a Strike King Thunder Cricket. It could be a Z-Man jackhammer. Most people call it a chatterbait. It is technically a vibrating jig. It is one of the best, if not the best, pre-spawn lures to throw, at least in my area, especially on the Tennessee River. It pretty much dominates the month of March. You can still catch them pretty good on a lipless or a trap. And of course, the Alabama rig. I got plenty of videos on the Alabama rig. I got a few videos on the lipless, but I don't have very many videos on the vibrating jig or chatterbait. And if you were somewhat serious into fishing, these are the two that you know and heard about quite often. The Thunder Cricket by Strike King and the jackhammer by Z-Man or Evergreen. These two are arguably the best vibrating jigs in the game right now. I've caught fish on both of them. I love both of them. Now, whether to say the jackhammer is better than the Thunder Cricket, that is just opinion based. I've caught plenty of fish on the Thunder Cricket, and I've caught plenty of fish on the jackhammer. There's been days where the jackhammer outperforms the Thunder Cricket and vice versa. But today I'm going to show you guys some of the areas that you want to fish this. I'll also show you guys the best rod and reel setup for this, because yeah, you can throw this on just any kind of rod, a 7 foot medium heavy, but to get more out of this bait, you really want to use a technique specific rod, reel, and line for this. And also some tips on like bait modification in order to get more bites, in order to get better hookup ratio and everything. So guys, stay tuned and we will jump into it right about now. Okay guys, now I'm not being sarcastic when I say like where you can fish this thing or how you can fish this thing, because there's a multitude of ways. I'm just going to show you guys the way I fish it, and it's very, very simple. What I do is in the pre-spawn is I find the last deep water going into a pocket or a creek, and I will literally throw this parallel 45 with the bank, and also the last deep water when it transitions into the flat where they typically spawn. That's where I will primarily key in with the vibrating jig, chatterbait, or anything like that. I have caught plenty of bags on chatterbait. I have caught a lot of fish on chatterbait doing this. But typically you can really fish this anywhere. Where it excels are in pockets and flats, with grass, especially with grass, but you don't need grass. You can have isolated bushes in there, isolated trees, just some form of cover that those fish can get on. Now that does not mean that you can't catch them out in the flat with nothing on it. I've done that too. Just the better areas for me are off of the deep areas, the last deep areas into the pockets and the creeks, and in the backs of them where that deep water transitions into that flatter water. And typically I'll start throwing this thing when the water gets into 50 degree. 52 to 53 is like the magic number when they start biting this thing really good, is when the water temperature gets up to that, and all the way out through post spawn when the water gets up to like 70, 72, right before those majority of those fish go deep. I primarily focus on grass and isolated bushes on those flats, and that last deep water going into, or the last deep water going into the pockets and the creeks. That is good, I mean, in all honesty, from March here in East Tennessee to the middle to 1st of May. That's when it's best. Typically I will start out in the like early in the year, just mainly depending on water clarity. The clearer the water, the more translucent shad style bait you want to go with. I don't know what color this is. It's like a Beehive Delight or the Spot Remover or something like that. And also the clear water shad is very good. It got a lot of translucent in it. I feel like that translucent does a lot better in clearer water. That is typically what I do in the pre-spawn, is I try to do like a little shad based pattern. But if the water is dirty, I will go to a black and blue chatterbait. I feel like that black and blue chatterbait does very, very well, especially in that 1 foot range, 1.5 foot range, if not muddier water. And again, I'm hitting the same areas. I'm hitting the flats. I have a little bit of grass on them. You can hit them on main lake flats too. I typically do better in pockets and in creeks with the chatterbait. Is more of a pre-spawn and spawn and early post-spawn deal for me, the way I fish it. Now, when the spawn is going on, I typically put one color in my hand and I do not put it down if I'm throwing a chatterbait or a bladed jig, and that is a green pumpkin or a bluegill style chatterbait bladed jig. The main reason why I throw this right here is because bass do not like bluegill during the spawn, so I will throw this with a green pumpkin trailer, watermelon red trailer, California 420 trailer, something that matches the color of the bluegill or brim in your area. They absolutely hate bluegill during the spawn. They do not want them anywhere near their bed. They're bed raiders. They'll get in there and they'll eat the eggs and everything like that. So anything you can do during the spawn to match a bluegill, you will most likely get better bites, more bites with a bluegill color bladed jig. Now, you still can catch them on a shad color. Not all fish go on bed at the same time. You can still catch some pre-spawners and you can catch some post-spawners on it. Again, when I go post-spawn is when I go back to the shad color. Main reason is because after the bass spawn, the shad will spawn, and when that shad spawns, those fish are still shallow for a little while, and they're feeding up before they go deep because they're recouping from that spawn. They're building back up their strength and everything, so they're going to be gorging themselves on these shad while they're spawning up shallow. And again, the flats are good. Shad like to spawn in grass around brush pile, and especially in the post spawn is when I start focusing more on docks, especially floating docks. I feel like the shad spawn a little bit more on floating docks. And like I said, a shad style chatterbait is the best during post spawn. Now, also I typically only throw 2 size bladed jigs. That is a 3/8 and a half. Very rarely you'll see me go to a 3/4 or anything smaller than 3/8. I think they make quarters, but typically I stick with 3/8 and half. 3/8 is when I'm fishing super shallow, like less than 4 or 5 foot, and half ounce is when I'm fishing deeper than 4 to 5 foot. Especially in that deeper grass. I want to keep on ticking the top of that grass, even though the grass is growing in 7-8 feet of water. Now we are going to the rod and reel combo. The rod I have is probably the best chatterbait rod I have ever used, and it is a glass rod from Dixie Custom. He calls it the chatter stick. It has a lot of tip, but it has enough backbone to drive that big 4 or 5/0 hook that these jackhammers and these thunder crickets have. It's a 7'1" medium heavy X glass rod. Now what that glass rod does is, like I said, it gives you a lot of tip. Now that lot of tip helps you load up this rod and you can cast this thing a mile. I have that paired up with 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon. I will go to 20 if I'm fishing a lot of heavier cover, a lot more laydowns, a lot more rush piles. And I have it on a 7 gear ratio reel. The reason I like that 7 gear ratio reel is if I'm needing to burn it, I can burn it, but if I need to slow down, it's easier for me to slow down. I like it. I do like a little bit of a wider spool on the reel, just because you're making so long casts. You don't want your gear ratio to affect it that much. So the wider spool is, the more line you can put on it as well. So when you're making those long 50 yard casts, if not further, you can, you're not spooling your line. But like I said, it's just a Dixie Custom chatter stick. All the links to all my stuff will be down in the description below. Check out Dixie Custom, check out all my line, my reels, everything else. I have them down in the description below. But we're going to get on to I got 2 pretty good tips for you guys that I use that get me more bites. So we'll hop into that right now. Now we are hopping into the trailer portion of the video. And the tip I'm going to give you guys is, you don't always have to have a small trailer. The one thing I like to do is upsize my trailer. And what that does is it's able for those fish to suck in that bait a lot better. I feel like it gives them more surface area, a bigger bait, and also it gives you a bigger profile to get those bigger bites. Now, with that being said, you can still throw these smaller trailers, but typically I like to throw a larger trailer, whether that be like a Gary Yamamoto, Zaco, whatever these things are called, Zaco, I don't know, I'm just a country boy, I can't read. So, but what these are is just a big, bulky Shad style it's got little ribs on it and everything. It's just a big, bulky Shad style plastic for a trailer you can put on the back of the chatterbait or the bladed jig. And that tail, as you guys can see, it has a lot in it. It has a lot of action. With that a lot of action, it displaces a lot of water. And you can still use, you know, a split tail trailer, a Rage Menace, the Blade Minnow from Strike King. Those are good. I typically use these smaller trailers when I'm wanting to keep my bait down and level in the water column. I use those bigger baits to help give it a little bit more lift, a little more rise, especially when I'm fishing super shallow grass. It helps out quite a bit. And another thing that I like to do with my bladed jigs is when I rig my trailer up there, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I got it rigged vertical with the hook. I don't know if you guys can see that real well. It's a black bait and everything, but I got it hooked vertical with the hook, straight up and down with the hook. And what that does is, you're mostly imitating bait fish with this, whether it be bluegill, big gizzard shad, threadfin shad. You're imitating bait. Bait does not swim up and down, they swim side to side. So I feel like that's a little bit more natural. It's a little bit more streamlined. It helps keep my bait level in the water column. It doesn't help it rise too much. This right here is just a Zoom Z-Crawl. One of my favorite trailers on a chatterbait. Now, that trailer tip I gave you was one of my better tips for the chatterbait, but this tip right here I really don't want to show you guys, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. We've had a lot of rain here in East Tennessee and it's muddied up a lot of water, and people here know that you can throw a painted bladed spinnerbait and catch fish, but I don't think many people have figured out that you can paint the blades on the chatterbait or the vibrating jig and it do the same thing, if not help you get more bites. But right here I just have a white and chartreuse thunder cricket and I have painted the blade orange. Now I really don't want to show you guys that. All you need is fingernail polish. You can paint it orange, yellow, paint, whatever color you want to. You can always use a Sharpie on, I use a Sharpie on my green pumpkins, sometimes my whites, and of course my black chatterbaits. But really there's only 3 colors I use. That's a white and chartreuse, a green pumpkin, and a black and blue. So technically 4 colors. But that's all I have for you guys. I know I was a little long-winded in this video. It looks like I got about, after I edited it down and everything, it'll probably be close to 10-11 minutes. Hopefully not that long. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video. I hope you guys learned something. I didn't want to show you guys some of those things in here, but I figured it would help you guys, and it helps me. It's what I do to my chatterbaits, and it's why I catch a lot of fish on them. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button. Make sure you check out all my links down in the description, rods, reels, line, all that kind of stuff. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, catch them big.